Happy Friday, everyone. It is the TGIF edition of Weather for Weather Geeks, the Valley's most in-depth weather forecast video. We didn't do this video on Thursday because we did a marathon live stream, of course, about 3 hours of continuous coverage with that big mean line of thunderstorms pushing through the area. We were on from about 6:45 to 9:45. My voice was pretty tired last night, but we did our best to keep you safe and keep you informed. Thankfully, the damage reports and the power outages both were a little lower than I would have expected, given how high-end of an event this ended up being. In terms of rainfall, this is a look at a sampling of rain totals from the area from weather observers. So these are not radar estimates, but actual numbers from actual rain gauges across the area. Generally speaking, kind of the 422 corridor was the zone where some of the higher totals were. 2 to 3 inches, pretty common, from parts of Trumbull County down through the Newcastle area. I've seen a couple of reports of up to 3 inches, not shown here, but I've seen a couple of those reports. Generally, the lowest amounts were in western parts of Mahoning and Columbiana County as well. In downtown Youngstown, we had a little over 1 inch, which jives pretty well with the rest of these spotter reports in Mahoning County. Now, this rain fell across a lot of areas that still could have used some rain because we're still running some long-term deficits here, even with yesterday's rain totals going back over the last 2 months, so basically back to mid-May. About half of our area still pretty dry, about half of our area fairly wet compared to the average over the last 2 months. Still looking pretty dry in a lot of Mahoning County, southwestern Trumbull, and the western half of Columbiana as well. We're doing better near the state line and over into western PA, especially in Lawrence County. We are running some pretty nice deficits there, or surplus values, I should say, there over the last 2 months. And because it has been, a long-term, dry situation, no surprise, no, this was valid before yesterday's rain, but still, the same idea holds true. About half of our area, or a little bit more, still designated as in a moderate drought. So this is this week's drought monitor compared to a week ago. Fewer areas in the moderate drought as compared to 3 weeks ago, and basically our entire viewing area was. Now it's a little more half and half. Again, with southeastern areas doing better than areas to the north and to the west. So, yeah, we're still running some deficits long term, but certainly we got a healthy drink of water yesterday. Here's a look at the storm reports. We'll start out with a zoomed out view. For an enhanced risk day, level 3 on that level 5, or 1 to 5, I should say, severe weather risk scale, not an overwhelming amount of storm reports. We had more with some of the wind events back in the spring, late March, early April. Some places did have some trees down and some problems, but, it was real scattered, mostly in parts of Columbiana County and then also up into eastern and central Trumbull County into Mercer County. We did have a pretty good rotation signature for a time in northeastern Trumbull with a possible wall cloud up there. And we did have a tornado warning for a time over in eastern Mercer. It did not produce a tornado, I should say, but it did prompt a tornado warning and prompt us to hop onto TV and talk about that for a little bit of time last evening. All right, longtime Valley residents, no doubt, remember what happened 20 years ago today. One of the worst rain events in modern history for our area. And in fact, this is in first place on the list of wettest days on record at the Youngstown Warren Airport. We picked up at the airport 4.65 inches worth of rain on July 21st, 2003. This was a huge event from the Akron area on east into parts of Mahoning, Trumbull counties, and eventually out into Mercer as well. This is a map issued a while back by the National Weather Service office in Cleveland, so they don't include counties not in their coverage area. But in their coverage area, Mahoning and Trumbull, a lot of rain. And, the airport picked up 4.65 just east of the airport, close to the state line. There were some areas that saw well over 5 inches worth of rain in one day. And as a result, we had some pretty tremendous river flooding across the area with this. The rivers peaked a couple of days after the heavy rain, so the heavy rain event was mostly on the 21st. The rivers tended to peak late at night, the 22nd into the 23rd. The Mahoning River at Leavittsburg peaked at a little over 17 feet. Not the biggest crest on record for this location, but in the top 5. Same idea for the Mahoning River at Youngstown. Not the highest crest on record, but in the top 5, cresting at 17.49 feet. By the way, we had another pretty heavy rain event later that July that caused the rivers to spike once again a handful of days later after that big rain event on July 21st, 2003. Wanted to show you just the nice contrast to what we were dealing with 24 hours ago when I'm recording this video at 7:20. Beautiful summer evening. A few fair weather clouds. It's going to be a nice sunset this evening. Got a pretty nice forecast for the weekend as well. And the dew points are going to stay kind of in check for the weekend. You know, it's late July. These could be a lot higher. They were a lot higher yesterday. But the dew point's around 60. That's about what we'll expect as we go into Saturday and into Sunday. And while our official forecast remains a dry one, I'm not going to be able to totally discount the idea that a sprinkle happens tomorrow afternoon in a couple of spots. The low levels will be pretty dry. So any cloud that tries to produce a couple of raindrops tomorrow afternoon, chances are it's not going to reach the ground. It's going to get eaten up by the dry air. Certainly would not alter any outdoor plans for the first half of the weekend with that slim chance of a sprinkle or a quick shower tomorrow afternoon. Little disturbance pushing through on Sunday might increase the risk a little bit more for a quick shower or a sprinkle on Sunday. The coverage might be a little bit higher. We might eventually add a higher chance of a shower into our forecasts for Sunday. Right now, dry until we see more evidence that this model has kind of the right idea. Nonetheless, it's not going to be much. Once again, the low levels will be pretty dry on Sunday, so largely dry. We're going to start out Monday dry. Maybe there's a passing shower or storm as we get into the afternoon on Monday. All right, so the weekend forecast, this is as comfortable as it's going to be for the next week or so. 80 on Saturday, 83 on Sunday, and the heat is going to start building next week. The big heat ridge over the southwest is going to expand some, and the persistent troughing over the Great Lakes that we've seen a lot of the summer so far is going to start to relax some, and that's going to allow some heat to build in. We're not going to be right underneath the ridge. This isn't the kind of pattern that's going to produce a 98-degree day locally. But with this kind of a setup, with a lack of northwest flow and kind of a broad ridge encompassing a lot of the lower 48 states, I think we're going to get into the 90s for at least a couple of days during the second half of next week. And look how expansive the warmer than average temperatures will be, rounding out July at the end of next week. And while it may cool down some into next weekend, pretty warm stuff later next week. So our official forecast now peaks at 93 next Friday. Easily the hottest temperature of the year so far, if that were to verify. We have 92 in the forecast for Thursday, 89 on Wednesday. Just a reminder, in our climate zone, generally speaking, a heat wave is considered to be 3 or more days of 90-degree plus air temperatures. So we don't officially have a heat wave in our forecast, but awfully close with an 89 Wednesday and into the lower 90s for Thursday and for Friday as well. Hope you have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks for if you watched our streaming coverage last night, thanks for tuning in for that. We got a lot of great comments and reports on social media, on my YouTube channel as well. We'll be back on Monday with a fresh edition of the Valley's most geeky, detailed, in-depth weather forecast video. And once again, have a great weekend.